Hello, everyone. This is Etienne. Welcome to GoFundMe, number 7. And today I have with me Jesse. Jesse, say hello.
Hi guys.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
I hope that it's many happy returns to your family and a lovely meal. Now, on the topic of family, maybe you could tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up, being somewhat gender nonconforming, where you did with the people around you that you did have.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up, in Virginia. I'm still living in Virginia. Single mother for most of my life. I lived with my grandmother too. And, I was always, even my mom will tell you, from the time I picked my own clothes, I'm like, I just want jeans, t-shirt, pair of boots, pair of sneakers. I'm like, I'm not doing any of that, girly stuff. Even before, figuring out, transgender or anything, I was like, no, that whole girly girl stuff, skirts, that's not my life. And, my grandmother was always one of those, she was like, well, you need to make her wear, the dress clothes. You need to make her, keep her hair long. And, I don't like this dyeing it all kinds of funny colors. My mom was like, look, if short hair, short blue hair is the worst thing that's going to happen in our life.
So, how did your mom take it when it wasn't when it wasn't the only thing that was going to happen? I'm not going to say the worst, but when you decided to come out.
At first, she seemed kind of chill about it. She was kind of like, oh, okay, I still love you. I'll call you later. And then, as kind of later on, she's, I think, kind of struggling with it because she's more, oh, well, I don't really, she'll post something on Facebook and she'll, instead of using transgender, she'll, you know, um, use transsexual instead of it. And she'll, just a little comment, I don't believe in same-sex marriage, or I don't believe in all of this, or, you don't know how hard this is for me. And, I was just kind of like, well, been kind of hard for me too around here, but.
Well, I know that you're married to a woman, so I imagine, and that you had that relationship before you transitioned. So how is your mother handling that, prior to your transition?
Pretty good. I mean, they get along pretty well. So when I first come out, of course, coming out, it was, I came out as lesbian before I came out as transgender. And, my mom was pretty cool with that. But it's just, the more recent, she seems to be struggling now. But she was like, once she met Amanda, she's just like, oh, okay, let's go. I like her. Let's go.
Oh, that's cool. So she didn't give you, because you mentioned that she didn't like same-sex marriage, and you're married. So did she come to your wedding? Was that all pretty chill?
Yeah, I mean, it's just been kind of pretty recently that all of that came out, that she's posted things like that. So I'm like,
Oh my goodness.
where in the world did that come from?
Has she been radicalized by the love of Trump or something like that?
I mean, she might have. She did vote for him twice, so.
Good grief.
I know.
Well, time ran out for him. Thank goodness for that.
Oh, I know. As I was watching the results the whole time, my wife had him up on her phone, and I kept poking, where are we at now? It'd be like 5 minutes later, poke, where are we at now? She's like, calm down.
Even though people have been saying for ages in advance that it was going to be this thing of a lot of Democrats mailed in their ballots, and so you wouldn't see the results come in for a few days. Still, everybody was in a mad panic at first, weren't they? Like, because you just like, no, not again, please, not again.
Right, not this again.
Yeah. Anyway, congratulations. It feels like congratulations are in order for
Thank you.
how it actually went. Okay, so now with your transition, you've been taking hormones. How long have you been taking hormones? What's that been like for you? How are you finding it?
It's been, I think this last one was number 6, so it's been about a month and a half, because it's an every week shot. I don't know why I decided to go with a shot. I hate needles, and that thing is
Mhm.
huge, but we were talking about it. My wife's like, "Yeah, I have no problem stabbing you." I said, "Hold on, wait a minute." But it's been going all right. I haven't, really been seeing too much yet, but it's only been a month, so.
Yeah, it takes some time to sit. I mean, I think that the earliest things that I noticed were more psychological and like the way that I felt energetically, rather than physical changes started to perk up later. Although, it's been perpetual. Things have been perpetually changing since I'm 11 months on hormones myself, and things are perpetually changing. You hear the state of my voice now. That didn't come about until a couple months ago. But then all of a
Mhm.
sudden, it just dropped off a cliff. My voice. So yeah. There's other things yet to come, I'd imagine.
Oh yeah, I bet. But just kind of starting out and getting into it and everything. So
Are
I've
you feeling?
noticed.
Sorry, carry on. Sorry.
You're fine. I've noticed at least being a lot happier. Before I'm just gonna sit around in bed and I'm not really gonna do anything. But now I'm like, as soon as I'm awake, I'm shaking my wife. Okay, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go.
I had a similar thing. I was kind of like disappearing into a sedentary, like I just had no motivation to do anything. And then as soon as I started hormones, I started exercising like mad. I started being more social. I started being ready to go. Yeah, it's good stuff. Magic
Oh
juice.
yeah, oh yeah.
Excellent. That's really good. Um, cool. And that's all cool. Are the hormones covered by your insurance? Are you all covered that way?
Yeah, there's the pharmacy charges a little bit for the syringes, but the actual medicine itself is totally covered.
That's
So
excellent.
it's like for every month I end up paying, I think it's like, $2 plus whatever the tax is, so
Excellent.
$2, maybe 10 cent.
Oh, that's really good. That's really good.
Yeah. I was really surprised. I was really worried, but I took it over to took the prescription over there and I'm like, what's this gonna cost me? And she ran it through and she's like, the cost of the syringes, which is, I don't remember what it is per
Mm,
one, but I'm like, okay.
nice. That's really good. So no need to raise money for hormones anyway, which is nice. But
Right.
I understand that you've got uh, a separate issue that insurance doesn't want to help you out with. Do you want to tell us a bit about your hearing?
Yeah. For some reason, insurance has decided they'll cover hormones, but not anything to help with my hearing. I've been, kind of steadily losing my hearing for a little while. It just keeps getting worse and worse. And I recently went and had it tested, and he said, it is, pretty severe hearing loss. He's playing noises through headphones, and my wife's 15, 20 feet away across the room, and she's just looking at me. She's like, I can hear that. What do you mean you can't? You're wearing the headphones. I'm like, I just can't. But he had gone over, the results of it and everything, and, hearing aid costs and everything, and put in the insurance to see if it would help with anything, and it just won't cover anything.
And how much do you need to get the hearing aids that you want?
The one he had recommended came to about $5,000. He said the lowest one that would work was about, I think he said about half that. Because he said, anything really is better than nothing. But based on how bad my hearing is, of course he had to recommend, a really good one that would be able to actually get my hearing there.
Hmm. And the insurance company, what's their line about why they won't cover it?
Um, they, my wife actually called them for me to see why, what was going on, why they wouldn't do anything, because they covered the test completely. But they said that as long as I still have, I think it's basically like as long as I can still hear something, it's not necessary for me to have hearing aids. So they'll so they're not going to put anything in on it, basically.
Good grief. And so then you find
Right.
yourself in this position where you need to try and get together the money so that you can pay for these hearing aids so you can hear.
Right.
Okay, cool. And so you set up a funding, a self-funding page in aid of that.
I did, yeah.
Okay, excellent. And we'll put that in the description box below so that people can pitch in, you know, as a lovely Thanksgiving gift or in the coming month a Christmas gift. Um,
Right.
I have a couple of other things that I wanted to ask you about. This strange acronym that you mentioned to me, which, if my calendar serves, should be nearing its end, which is
Yes.
NaNoWriMo, if I can read correctly, NaNoWriMo,
Mm-hmm.
um, National Novel Writing Month. Is that right? Okay, so you're participating in National Novel Writing Month because you write. You're an author. Um, can you tell us a little bit about what that is and anything that you can without spoiling what you're up to?
Yeah, of course. It's put on by a organization. It's National Novel Writing Month. It's runs from the 1st to the 30th of November every year. I don't know how long they've been doing it, but for a while, because this is like my 10th one I'm doing.
Wow.
And your goal is to write a 50,000 word book at least by the end of November, because 50,000, they say, puts you right about a young adult novel length. And then, as you're editing, of course, it'll get a little longer, a little more filled out. So it ends up being, I think it's 1,666 words a day, I think, that it ends up being if you space it all out evenly. So I've just been writing away. I figured out, like, my little 3-sentence thing. I was like, this is who my main character is. This is who my second character is. This is, the kind of plot of my angry ghost. This is why he's angry. And I'm like, just sit down and write it. Because any other time I have this big drawn out, outline, everything, it hasn't worked out. I haven't got there. So I was like, you know what? Look, I have an angry ghost and a deaf guy, and let's go.
So is it coming along well? I mean, obviously you don't want to give anything away, but how did it go? I mean, we're at the 26th.
Pretty good. I'm definitely not going to be at 50,000 by the end of the month again, but I have, pretty much the whole plot put together. I kind of know where it's going, how it's going to get there. I just have to finish sitting down and writing it. I just have to get it done, which it probably won't be the end of November. It'll probably be end of December, but it'll get done.
Well, I mean, that's still quite the accomplishment. To write a novel in 2 months seems like no small feat to me. You said you've done this 10 other times before. Are there any, what are the sort of highlights of previous years' efforts?
I think I've won it twice.
Oh, wow.
Pretty recently, and I'm still, one of those, once I finish it, I've got to put it away before I can edit or anything. Otherwise, I'll be looking at it like, yeah, this is perfect. And then I'll give it to my wife to read. And she's like, okay, I'm not even off of page 1, and I can tell you perfect is not the right word.
A bit of that loving honesty. But it helps, though. It
That's why
helps
I
to have
always get her
someone.
to read it. I'm like, read this.
Yeah, it helps to have someone that you can trust that can help you
Yeah, I'll always
get
get
from
her
where
to
you
read
are.
it. I'll be like, look, you gotta.
Really good. Then you won twice. So why don't you tell us a bit about the times that you won? What were you writing about? How'd that all come off?
Um, one of them was, just a whole bunch of short stories. I was in a short story mood. So I was just like, you know what? 1,700 words a day. It's a lovely short story length. Let's go. So just kind of whatever I was feeling that day. And the other one, I actually wrote a book for my wife. It was an idea I had, and I'm like, I'm not gonna, I don't know about finishing this. I don't know about writing it. I don't know, kind of, putting myself down. I can't finish this. I can't do it. That's crazy. Why did I think I could do this? And she was like, no, you're gonna sit down. You're gonna finish this book. You're gonna write it. You're gonna edit it. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be lovely. So even though I hadn't finished, polishing it up and having it ready, to sell to anybody else, I went, found a site that'll print just one copy of it and printed out one copy and wrapped it up for Christmas that year. And I was like, look, it's not edited, it's nothing pretty, but I wrote it.
Ah, it's lovely. All
Yeah.
right. So, you're an author. You've won NaNoWriMo twice. You participated for the last 10 years. How is it that you must have always loved to read as a kid, I'm guessing, did you? Or like have a great love of reading as a child? Was that inspired by anyone in
Oh yeah.
particular?
Oh yeah. My mom would work nights, so she'd leave me with my grandmother, her mother, and both of them from the time I was born pretty much were reading to me, and as soon as they could, started teaching me the alphabet, started teaching little words. And my mom loves to tell the story. I was either about to turn 4 or had just turned 4, and we were out to eat with one of her friends. Some of her friend had suggested that we'd never been to before, so it wasn't like I had just memorized the menu or whatever. And my mom's sitting there and she's like, well, what are you going to get off the children's menu? So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the kids menu, and her friend is like, what do you mean, what's she gonna get? Like, aren't you gonna like tell her options or whatever? My mom's just like, all cool about it. She just goes, no. So I just sat there and started reading the little options to her. And her friend, you know, worked daycare, so she worked with kids my age, and she's just sitting there like, you've never been here, like you've never been here before. What are you doing? What are you doing? And so we had a library. It was right around the corner. It was, maybe a couple minutes drive, and whichever one of them was free, I was like, let's go to the library, let's go to the library, let's go to the library, let's go to the library. And, I remember I was, I want to say 10 or 11 or so, and we had a shelf in the hallway at my grandmother's, just a little, it's like 3 or 4 shelves, just a little wooden thing that had some of her books on it, had encyclopedias on it, had, some of my mom's books on it. My mom was always, you want to read one of my books, just ask me, let me know you have it, whatever. I have some comedy books over there. I have some, little stories, whatever. And she had one book I was always like, Ma, I want to read that book. And she's like, you're too young for that. It was Stephen King's Dreamcatcher.
Oh my.
So, first of all, it's Stephen King. And second of all, it's, a big old chunker of a book from him. And I'm like, Ma, I want to read that. And she's like, you're too young for that. And I was like, Ma, I want to read that. So, just kept going, but, Ma, I want to read that. I want to read that. I want to read that. So she finally was, look, I'll let you take it. I'll let you read it, but I don't want to hear a single word come out of your mouth when you have bad dreams from it. That'll be our thing. I don't want to hear about your nightmares from Stephen King, but if you'll shut up about it, I'll let you read it. So I took it and I read it, and she was like, how was that book? And I was like, I want another one. She's like, what? What? Because I don't want, I don't watch scary movies. I didn't ever want to have anything to do with Halloween. We'd go around for Halloween. If people were dressed up, I was, nope, we're not going there. Not worth the candy for dealing with that. So I was like, I want another one. She's like, you want another Stephen King book? I was like, yeah. So she went and so she was like, all right, fine. I'll get you one. She's like, but I guarantee I can pick you one that's gonna, make you, turn you off of Stephen King. So I was like, okay, fine. I was like, I accept that challenge. So she brings home It. I
Oh
hate
my.
clowns. I hate them. She brings home It. She says, here you go. She said, same rules. I don't want to hear about it when he gives you nightmares. Scary author. Here you go. Sit down and read this one. And I like devoured the thing. And I was like, I want another one. And she's like, you've got to be kidding me.
Oh my goodness.
She was like, what have I done?
Created a Stephen King monster.
So now, and I've noticed anytime I'm writing, it's always, something paranormal, something scary. There's always a witch or a demon or a goblin or, something in there. I'll be like, oh, I'm just, writing this story about this terrifying ghost, taking over this town and everything. And she's like, what did I do? What did I do? I gave you Stephen King. What did I do?
And that's really interesting too. Like if you can't deal with it visually, but that it's a real passion of yours in the realm of the imagination, that's really quite interesting. Do you have any idea why? Like, what is it about? Is it the sort of jumping out that you can't deal with in films? With the sort of like the, or what is it? What's the difference for you between watching a film and coming up with a crazy paranormal idea, or reading a book that's scary?
Hmm. I had never really thought about it. I think probably the, when you're reading it, even if, the bad guy just appears out of nowhere, you're reading it, you're like, going through it. Oh, he suddenly appeared out of nowhere from behind a bush, whatever it is. And you're like, okay, that's cool. He suddenly showed up out of nowhere. When you're writing it, it's the same thing. You're just like, oh, I'm gonna have him jump out from behind this bush. But, when you're watching it, all of a sudden, terrifying, like the new Pennywise, all of a sudden, it's like right here. You're like, whoa, hold on a minute. That's
Yeah.
not jumping out from a bush, sir.
Interesting. That is interesting. My little sister's born on Halloween, and when we were small, I could not watch any kind of horror, anything. It's something that I've really had to grow into. My brother and sister both really loved horror, although they've sort of grown out of it. But when we were small, like my sister, she's 6 years younger than me, and when she was in her sort of sixes and sevens, and I was already, a teenager,
Mhm.
she'd want to watch scary things, and I'd be running frightened out of the room.
No, no.
Yeah.
That's always how I was. I've gotten a little better about it. My mom was always like, oh, it's Halloween, let's watch a scary movie. And I'm like, nope, gotta go. I'm gonna go read Stephen King in my room. I'm gonna go anywhere but here.
Oh my
But
goodness!
I've gotten better. It started out,
Sorry, carry on.
started out, I'd be watching them with my wife, and I'm like, we're sitting there on the couch or whatever, and, scary part, I'm like behind her shoulder. I'm like, watching over her shoulder or something. And I was just like, just sit over there. So, we'll get a little better. I'll be like, we'll be watching something. I'm like, okay, pause it, or we'll make it through like one scary movie. If she, she's got 3 or 4 lined up. We'll make it through one. And I'm like, okay, can we go watch like, Paw Patrol or something that's not terrifying? 15 minutes of something not terrifying before we do the next one.
Oh, I can remember birthday party. I didn't really usually get invited to too many when I was little because I was a bit awkward, gender nonconforming, friendless, strange little child. But I did get invited to a birthday party, and they were watching. I think it was Friday the 13th or something like that. And I went and hid. They watched Grease. I watched all that. That was cool. The singing and the dancing. I could handle the John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John. But then they put on this Friday the 13th, and I disappeared off into the bedroom and hid under the covers for the entire thing. Just no, God, no.
Right? No.
Yeah. Too scary. I didn't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I just don't want to.
Yeah, I can usually handle hearing it or whatever, but I'll be sitting there and like we'll be watching, like I've got my phone or something, like if it's, kind of a non-important part of the movie or something, and I'm like got my phone, I'm, be playing some little game or something, and she's like, "Are you not watching the movie?" Nope, not right now. And she's like, "Why?" And I'll be like, "Cause so and so is just walking down the road, and I know somebody about to jump out at him, and I'm not gonna be here for that." Nope.
I can understand that. Nice one. Why don't you tell us about your wife? How'd you meet her? That kind of thing.
Well, I met her first at college. I went, to college, and she was actually friends with the girl I ended up being a roommate with. So I kind of met her that way, and, started out as friends. And then I was like, I don't know what it was, but I was like, this one's not getting away. I'm keeping this one. So I asked her out, and it just kind of went from there. And she was always, before I transitioned, she's always, kind of one of those, she'll try to make a joke or, something to kind of lighten it up if I'm stressed out or whatever. So I stressed out when I told her about, being transgender and everything. And she'd always said, she said she didn't know what it was, but I was the only girl she had ever, wanted to date. And then I ended up proposing, and she's like, "I don't know what it is, but, you were the only, girl I could see myself being with." So when I, was real stressed out and anxious and everything about telling her about being transgender, she was like, that's what it was. Now I figured it out. I was like, shut up.
That's quite affirming, though. That's quite lovely and affirming. That she could. see that in you before. I mean, I don't know if you had this too, but I had some friends when I came out to them who said to me that they, that made sense to them, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, I had one girl that I told her that I've known her pretty much as long as I've known my wife. I mean, my wife and I have been together for a decade now. We met in 2010. But I've got one friend that I've known just as long that as soon as I told her, I was like, transgenders, this is what it, kind of means for me. This is, how I'd like, kind of you to be there, at least, change pronouns. I was already going by Jesse for everybody, but, I'm like, at least switch the pronouns up. And she was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I kind of knew. I was kind of like, whatever. And I was like, wait, you, what? Like, hold on.
It's amazing though. I think like when that happens, it just feels really good because you feel seen, don't you? Like I just felt really seen by those people who said that, you know. I mean, I had some people who said the opposite to me, and that felt like really, I mean, they have the greatest of intentions, and I'm not trying to slight them at all, but it felt really invalidating for a person to say that they couldn't see that for me. Whereas when people, the two best kinds of responses that I got were people who either said, "Oh, that makes perfect sense to me," or the people who say congratulations. Did you have anybody that said congratulations?
Not really.
That's a good one. I like that. I like that response. I want to normalize saying congratulations when someone comes out as trans because I think it really is a thing that needs congratulating, because it's just not easy to get to that point, is it? Can you tell us a little bit about, what it was, how you knew that you were trans?
It was just, I don't really know how I knew, but I had just been, so unhappy for so long. And I was just like, just kind of making it through, feeling real depressed. I've, been dealing with depression, anxiety, all of that most of my life. And I was like, look, if something's got to change, my wife was like, look, whatever it is, whatever you need, you let me know, I'm there for you. And I was just thinking about it, every time, thinking about, like life or future or whatever as female, it was just, worse and worse and worse and worse. As women going through, that time of the month, that was always worse then. And I'm, was finally sitting there thinking about it. I was, had kind of talked to one of my friends about it. And, they were like, what if it isn't just depression? What if this is going on? And, because I hadn't really even let myself really try to, for sure figure out what it was, that might be what was going on. I sat there, I was like, wait a minute. So then just thinking about it, thinking about, then they were like, well, you try to, if you start, thinking about the future or whatever with Amanda, try to like, picture it the other way. Cause like I said, I'd always been that tomboy. I'd always been very boyish, going by Jesse, spelled like I'd always tell people, I'm like Jesse. And, they'd always try to put Y's in it, I's in it. I'm like, no, just Jesse, just spelled like a guy. And they're like, that's a very guy kind of spelling of it. And I'm like, I know, that's how I'm spelling it. Put it on there. Yeah, usually when you see it spelled like that for a girl, it's got either IE or EY or something. People are always trying to do it like that. I'm like, no, just spell it like you would if a guy tells you his name's Jesse.
Yeah.
And that's why they were like, have you considered? Oh.
So
So it was a long, it was a few years kind of process before I finally was like, even admit it to myself, like, okay, yeah, yeah.
what's it like in Virginia? How do people cope? Are people polite, impolite, accepting, not so accepting?
Uh, Pretty cool with it. Just kind of a run of the mill from what I found. Of course, you're going to have your some that are very against it, and your some that are very for it. But I mean, even the majority, I've noticed, even if they're people that aren't against it, when you're face to face with them, they're just like, kind of, oh, okay, cool. At least very, non-confrontational about it, non-getting in your face with it. They're just kind of, you live your life, I'm gonna live mine.
It's good.
And I mean, I've lived here for I've lived in Virginia my whole life, and then I've lived here where I'm living now for 6, 7 years now. So people were already kind of used to me, before transitioning. So they're just like, oh, that's just Jesse. They're just a little weird. Just go with it.
So He's not there right at the moment, but I saw that there was a pretty big dog about. Um, you want to tell me about your dog?
Yeah, he's part lab, part chow. His name's Little Man, and I think anytime I have my computer open talking to somebody, I think he thinks that that's, his interview or his appointment or, whatever it is. He's like, why are you on my computer? Turn that around. They're clearly here for me. um, his name's Little Man. We've had him, I want to say he was 3, 4 months old or so when we first got him. One of my wife's cousins brought him by the house and was like, I can't take care of him. Do you want him? And we were like, okay, ours now. Pick. You always see, the videos or the memes or whatever. Somebody at a party and their girlfriend, picks up the cat and runs away. That's kind of us. Like, oh, okay, dog, thanks.
Oh, that's lovely.
But it started out as a nickname, but he had worms when he was a puppy, and he had all kinds of stuff going on. So they're like, yeah, he's supposed to be, a big, 80, 90, 100-pound dog, but he's, smaller than he should be. So he's only about 60, 65. These big old feet and these big old ears and everything, the ears and the feet the
Oh,
size he was supposed to be.
so
So you look
cute.
at, you look at him and you're like, you got these big old, like, I'm always messing with them. I'm like, you got these big old feet. What are you supposed to do with those things? Like, you got clown shoes on.
That's the cutest look on puppies, though, when they got the big feet and the big ears. Sweet.
I know. Unfortunately, he's part chow, which is, a big old puffy dog breed. And every time it starts getting cold, he makes all kinds of fur. His body's like, oh, let's, puff on out like a chow chow. And I'm like, that, stop it. We live in Virginia. You don't need to do this. It's not the Arctic. So then I'm just like picking up wads of fur. I'm like, here's enough fur to remake the whole doll. You want it? It just fell off.
I will wonder, do you have a message for the people who are viewing, who might have a couple of extra bucks to spare to put in for your hearing aid? Have you got a message for them?
Well, I mean, of course, if you're watching, if you can donate, I mean, absolutely anything will get me closer. It doesn't have to be, anything big. And, just if you do, really just a big thank you, already, because it really means a lot if I would, be able to get there, be able to afford them.
Great, fantastic. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. This has been Come Fund Me, episode 7. Please find Jesse's funding link in the description below. If you would like to be interviewed on the show, please feel free to leave a comment and I can direct you from there. Or reach me on Twitter. I'll leave a link in the description below, or Facebook. I am Etienne. That was Jesse. Say goodbye, Jesse. You have to say something, otherwise you can't
Bye,
hold them up.
guys.
There you go. Okay, I'm just gonna stop.